going on, everybody? So today I'm going to clean my lens again. I should probably learn to do that before I start the video. Might be something smart to do. Anyhow, what you guys are sitting on right now is a 2002 Ford F-150. Now this vehicle came into us with a complaint of a coolant leak, and basically this coolant leak appears to be coming from the thermostat housing, but under more careful inspection, this is a Triton 5.4 liter 2-valve motor, and what we found is that it is indeed coming from the thermostat housing location, but it is actually coming from the crossover tube that runs between the two sides of the intake manifold and the two banks of the cylinders. These are notorious for that intake manifold cracking, for those gaskets going bad, for that crossover tube gasket going bad, and not being able to fix any of this without having to completely remove the intake manifold, which kind of sucks. They actually took the aluminum crossover tube and it mounts across the front of the intake manifold, across the front of the plastic, but it is bolted from underneath the intake manifold. So with it bolted from underneath the intake manifold, you literally have to pull the whole thing off to do it. So, knowing that these have a very huge predominance of cracking, we are going to just replace the entire intake manifold. Now the new replacement units come with new gaskets, new seals, new O-rings, a new crossover tube, a new thermostat, new hardware, new everything. So we might as well. This truck has currently 277,000 miles on it, and it's just now showing these signs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set you guys up in the time lapse, and you can watch me rip apart this entire engine bay. And once I get the intake manifold off, I'll show you exactly where the problem areas are and what you need to do to fix it. So I'm going to set up the time lapse now, and you guys will be able to watch me pulling this whole thing apart. So here we go. Alright guys, so as you saw in the time lapse there, we got the intake manifold off. Now, it wasn't without peril. As with any vehicle that's got close to 300,000 miles on it, you can imagine that we ran into a lot of stuck bolts, a lot of bolts with heads that were missing, all kinds of crazy stuff. So we had to go through some lengths. You'll see me in the time lapse possibly banging on an extension with an adjustable wrench. But we only broke one bolt, and unfortunately it's broke off in the head, so we're going to actually have to drill this bolt out and see if we can actually extract it, or I may have to drill it, retap it, and go through the whole thing. And unfortunately it's not a through bolt, it's actually a blind hole in the cylinder head, so that's going to be super fun. But another cool thing that we found, Mickey Mouse's nest. So that's wonderful. So now basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and put paper towels in each one of these holes to cover those up. I need to clean up these surfaces. You can see right here where it's all nice and wet, that's exactly where this thing was leaking coolant. Now the problem is everything was leaking. So I don't know if you can see you might not be able to see the intake runners and how clean they are. That's abnormal because these over here are not that clean. However, these over here are super clean. So what was happening is basically there was water getting around the intake gaskets, and it was drawing water into the actual engine itself. And you can see down there that the passenger side cylinder head is nice and dry. The driver's side cylinder head is soaked with coolant. There's coolant that runs all the way back into the valley. So this thing's been leaking pretty good for quite some time. So, and unfortunately it finally just popped. But what we got to do now is I got to try to extract that bolt. So we're going to try to figure out if we can actually get in there and extract that. I'm going to drill a hole. I'll set the time lapse back up and see if that catches any of it. I can't get in there super close. Actually, you know what? Maybe I can. Maybe I'll throw you guys on the tripod inside the motor here, and we'll try to extract that bolt. So here we go. Alright guys, so we snagged the offending bolt. It is right here. I hope this is lit well enough for you guys to see. Get this camera down a little bit more. The offending bolt is right here. Now, the problem with this is if it was in this hole, that would be nice because that's a through hole and we could actually get this out. But because it's not, it's in this hole, it's going to be a little bit more fun. So basically what we're going to do is try to drill down through it with a very small drill bit. Once we drill down through it, I'll move to a bigger bit, and then now that we have the plastic intake out of the way, let me just get this knock sensor plug out of the way too. Now that we have the plastic intake out of the way, I can actually use some heat on here to get this off. But you can see there's some pitting here, and there's some pitting here, and pitting here. This thing's been leaking for a while, and nobody caught it. So what I'm going to do first is center punch that, and then we're going to attempt to put a drill bit down through there and see if we can't get through that bolt. So here we go. So we can get it as close to center as possible, so that if we have to drill it bigger, we don't throw the hole off center. But they usually tend to snap right in the middle. Yep, that's off center. Shit. Luckily, that's not a grade 8 bolt. guys, so somehow, well, not somehow, it requires a little bit of precision, but if you center punch your hole when you're drilling something out, you might get lucky and have what we actually got here. Now, I drilled this out with increasingly sized drill bits until I got just 10 thousandths under the size of the drill bit that's called for this tap. So basically this is an M8 by 125 bolt. Same thing obviously with the threaded hole. Now I drilled, it calls for a 265 thou drill. I used a 255 thou drill. Because I was in the center line of this, I was literally able to pull out, if I can find it, and no I can't, but I was literally able to pull out the threaded portion of the bolt because it cut through the bolt, but it didn't cut into the threads. So all I had to do was chase the threads out with the tap, and now our bolt threads right in and holds no problem. So we're gonna have to be a tad bit careful when we torque this one down because it does have a little bit of compromise, just due to the fact that we were drilling on it and everything else, but it'll be totally fine. There's plenty of threads in there, there's plenty of engagement. The bolt is in there nice and tight, everything is chased out, so we kind of dodged a bullet on this one and we're good. So now we're gonna put the intake manifold back on, clean up all that area, put the intake manifold back on, and we'll be back after that. So before we can pop the new intake manifold in, we're gonna have to take all the fuel rails and all the injectors out and transfer them over to the brand new intake manifold. So I'm gonna get all that stuff done. I'm gonna transfer everything over, and then I'll pop the intake in place and you'll be able to see it, because pretty simple. 4 bolts on the fuel rail, pull it all out, put some new injector O-rings on it, and then pop it back into the new one, and we'll be good to go. What's up, guys? All right, so it's been a little bit since we worked on this. It's been this is actually the next day. So next day we reinstalled the intake, got everything bolted back up, and it's running. Disregard the exhaust leaks. We got to do the manifold next, but we got 0 coolant leaks, running like a champ. So if you guys own a Ford product of this vintage, I think it goes all the way up to like 2007 or something like that, but the 4.6, the 5.4 Triton all have this issue. It's a plastic intake manifold. I'll show you guys what it looks like, and actually I can probably show you where it cracked. Let me bring it over to the bench. We're actually not going to put it on the bench because it's disgusting, but all right, so basically what you got is you have this metal crossover tube here that runs across the whole front of the intake. There's plastic here from the intake and plastic here from the intake. Now what happens is this one actually didn't crack on the bottom, but if we take this off, which I'm not going to do because we're just throwing this away, but if you take this off, underneath here there's some rubber O-ring style gaskets under there, and there's also some plastic areas inside here that tend to crack, and when they crack, the gasket spits out. So you can see that this entire side is wet, this entire side is dry. Well, it was actually leaking on this seam right here, leaking out of there and causing a whole bunch of trouble. So instead of trying to troubleshoot it, pull the intake, stupid design, the bolts for that crossover are on the bottom. These two you can get from the top. This one down here, you have got to take the intake manifold off. Same goes for this side. There's one here, one here, one here. You have to take this intake manifold off to service this part. So if you're going to take it off to service the part, you might as well just replace the entire part. The intake manifold is not as expensive as you would imagine, and this one was obviously, between all this crap, was just deteriorating significantly. So we got this thing running, we're good to go, everything is perfect with it, no misfires, no leaks, no nothing. So you know what, we're doing good on this one. Got it all set. Now we have some other work that we need to do to it, but I wanted to give you guys a quick run through and some time lapse of what it actually takes to get this intake manifold on and off. The job itself is not so bad, there's just a lot of steps to do it. So I'm hoping the time lapse helps you, I'm hoping some of this explanation helps you, but there it is, guys, running, good to go. So thanks for joining me on this one. I know a lot of you guys love my welding videos, but we also do this stuff, and I figured I'd post a little bit of it. And who knows, maybe somebody will benefit from it and how to troubleshoot this particular coolant leak on pretty much every Ford vehicle that's got a 4.6 or a 5.4 in it. So I'm tired, guys. I'm going to bed. I will see you all in the next one. Have a wonderful night.